Okay. Hi, I am Brooke. I am a UX writer at Lightricks. I was brought on as the first UX writer back in 2019, which at this point feels like a while ago. Lightricks, for those of you who don't know, we create mobile creativity apps. After about a year of working and building processes for UX writing within the company, we were able to grow from a team of 1 to a team of 4 UX writers. So over about like the last 6 or 7 months, which has been really exciting. And we are functionally part of the UX design team. Fun fact about me is that my one true hobby is posting to Instagram stories, and I'm finally not ashamed to say that, so I own it. So this presentation, as I'm sure some others will say, and I think this is what Kinneret was saying in Hebrew, this isn't all of our tools and processes, and it's not even all of the explanations of the tools that I'm going to show you. Instead, it's a sampling of some of the processes that have been especially helpful for me and my product team, so I thought those would be the good ones to share. So maintaining consistent language, we'll start off with the popular one, tone of voice. Yes, we have it. Most of our products have it. Those who don't are building it as we speak. And they're all collaborative effort between product and marketing. Everyone can see it, everyone has access to it, and we teach it to anyone. I teach it to anyone who's willing to listen. And this is also because not everyone knows about it, so it's been an initiative of mine over the last 6 months to present it, to make sure people know what it is, know what it does, the utility of it, so they know how to give me feedback, and so on and so forth. We maintain it in 2 different ways. One is we check in with the users. So with user research, we make sure that the tone of voice we developed is actually matching with the user's need. But we also check in with ourselves. I ask myself, are we actually using it? And if we are, great. If we're not, why? Is it because we need to adjust it? Because the users need something else and we kind of knew that, we just didn't really adjust it and codify it? Or is it because, no, we want to be using it, but we just kind of didn't really implement it, we weren't choosing it? Which leads me to, I wanted to say that we don't just use our tone and voice, we don't just maintain it. I also use it as a tool so that it maintains us in multiple ways, but again, we only have 10 minutes. So I'll just share 2 of the ways. One of the ways, the big way, is that I allow this to be kind of like an alarm bell for a larger product check-in. I'm sure as a lot of people on this call, listening, know and are familiar with the experience of you're getting conflicting feedback from different stakeholders. And instead of getting frustrated, it's actually an opportunity to see, oh, you know what? Stakeholders in this project might actually be on different pages, and you're someone who actually can identify that. And so, hey, let me bring this to product, to the PM, identify and be like, hey, maybe it's a time for all of us to sync. So not only does it help us maintain consistent language, it also helps to be on the same page in the product process. And then it also helps us be honest with ourselves. I'm sure as any designers on this call listening in know that there's a difference between creating branding and actually implementing it. And I know this sounds really corny, but it's like what they say about happiness. You have to actively choose it every single day. It doesn't just come. And it's the same thing with tone and voice. If you're not actively choosing it in most of your features, you're going to release a product that doesn't actually have it. So I use it as a way to, if I see that we're not actually using it, it's also an opportunity to bring it to product and be like, is this something we just need to be a little bit more disciplined about using? Or you know what, if this isn't the tone and voice for us, we thought it was, but it's not what we're clearly comfortable implementing, maybe we need to adjust it. So it's another check-in. Glossaries and references. We have so many, but these are 3 key ones. But if you see on the left-hand side, they all hit these values that have become super important in the process. One is to identify things that we shouldn't change. So when places in the app, when we're writing, need to either stay in English or branding or have a certain space. But also to identify where in our products things are recycled and are attached to other areas. So we know, hey, careful, if we touch this place, it'll affect this other area in the app, whether conceptually or technically in the code. But also, sometimes we get so caught up on not wanting to touch certain things and to break things, right? We lose out on the opportunity to optimize, and we're not creative where we can be. So it's also sometimes nice to note that. And then lastly, context. It's always good to have documentation, and I have a lot of documentation explaining what the process was, why it is like it is, why we made certain decisions. And so basically all of our glossaries and references hit those 4 key things. So our first big reference, I would call it both actually a glossary and a reference, is the code base. Don't get freaked out by this. It's not intimidating just to search through. It's something that I want to encourage writers to actually look into. You don't have to learn code. You don't have to learn Git or anything to start to get access and to just be able to look through the code, because it's a source of truth. It is the pain point of probably everyone in product of not having similar sources of truth. And so that's super useful for us to understand what's in the code, what was decided, what was before, what's coming up. You don't have to chase after different stakeholders. Second is context documents. This is usually for localization, but it can also be used when you pass off any part of a project to another stakeholder. Obviously, if you don't have full context, things go missing, priorities get reprioritized, and you're not passing it off as you intended. And then another thing that I do is I create key mapping documents. It is because I do work a little bit more in the code with the copy. So I work closely with the developers, and by the time I pass anything off to them, things need to be in line. My I's need to be dotted, my T's need to be crossed. So I make sure to map out all of the keys are what the copy is inside the code, so they know where everything is. And it's just another actually context doc. Sometimes I send the localization doc and I just add the key mapping doc on top of it. So basically it's really good for you in the future, not just other stakeholders, to remember what it was you decided a couple days ago or a week ago or a month ago, because I certainly don't remember. And then lastly, to maintain consistent voice and to understand where we are, it's a new design system. We're implementing a design system. I don't have much to say about this because it's very new. Props to all of the designers and the developers who are working hard on this. But for those who don't know, a design system is, let's see if I can do justice to this, essentially a library that you build of components, and you build it once, you make the big decisions, fight the big fires once, and once you have those built, you can kind of just drag and drop them into different features, and it means that friction goes down. You don't have to spend as much time fighting these same exact battles pre-release, and so that's really exciting. Some other tools that we use, writers do work inside of the design, which has been super helpful for me. We work on Sketch, we're moving towards Figma. I'm sure we'll start using some add-ons very soon that help us with the code and localization. We use everything to communicate. We're very flexible. There's a lot of different teams, a lot of different people. We communicate all over the place, so we use a lot. I think we're moving towards Jira, but these are the main ways we communicate: Trello, Jira, Google Sheets. I think as long as it works for you and you're a little flexible and know that if you work with different teams, different people might need different things, then that's good. And by far, the two best tools that I use to create my copy are usertesting.com and my the growing writing community. Usertesting.com is where I watch my copy actually crash and burn and go up in flames, and there's no more an efficient way for me to know how to adjust my copy other than seeing in person, real time, how it's not going well. And then also the writing community, I can only grow so much as a writer by myself in a silo where I was for 10 or so months. And so it's really exciting to have this growing team around me. And if for those that don't have it in company, there's so many of these other these communities to be a part of, like this one, where you can really grow. So the workflow. When I came into Lightricks, I was really adamant about becoming the one who just owned every piece of copy and every part of the process, because I thought it was going to make things easier. And I've since adjusted a little bit, but basically, as you can see, we're from, I try to get in as early as possible with the brief, do research sometimes with the designers. I happen to, some of us manage the copy inside the code, which is called keys and strings. It helps you understand what certain constraints are technically. Editing rounds, I could do a whole other presentation on that. And then the UX writers manage localization, and we also QA. And if you have time, ideate with BI, write user testing tasks if you have time. But I've since realized that getting in as early as possible doesn't necessarily reduce all the pain points of feeling like you don't have enough context. So I realized, okay, so sometimes it optimizes the process for the UX writer to be in at the very beginning with the brief. But you know what? Sometimes the designers, even if English is our source language and they're first language is not English, they're writing good enough copy for this to crank out where I'm not actually going to optimize it much more by like changing the words a little bit. So sometimes I can really come in and just QA it at the end. And then the team and I can use the usually limited resources, how many teams actually have enough UX writers, right? Use them, like optimize those resources. So basically what I do now is I ask myself, when a task comes to me, does this PM need to simply, do they need me to simply give them advice on this copy, or do they actually want me to write it? Because I can do either, and I can do things in between, but what's crucial is that you agree on it with your PM, like you're both on the same page. Because the thing that creates the most friction for me on my team is, say the PM wants me to merely QA something. I think that I'm actually supposed to be in from the brief. They're getting frustrated that I'm asking so many questions, and I'm getting frustrated that I feel like I don't have enough context. So that's why I feel like whatever it is, just be on the same page. And that has actually kind of revolutionized, I know it sounds kind of like extreme, but it's kind of revolutionized my process and being less frustrated, and I feel like things going a lot smoother. So sometimes you can come in with research, sometimes you just need to manage localization. So it's becoming a little bit more dynamic on my team. So lastly, working as a team, we work functionally day to day with our products. So with PMs, directly with PMs, designers, and developers. We grow professionally with our writing and design communities. That's where we brainstorm, we peer edit, we give and receive mentoring. Shout out Gilly, Orr, and Ellie, our growing UX writing team. And then we also have two other writers. We have Michal, content writer, and Ro, a content manager that also adds to this writing community to be able to brainstorm. And then we're also, like I said earlier, part of the design community, but this also has to do, includes content designers and branding designers. So that's kind of it. That's just a very quick sampling. I did want to end on kind of acknowledging that, those of us who work in big tech companies have a lot of these workflows. We figured out these workflows because we have a lot of resources and support for them. And don't get me wrong, we're incredibly lucky. But I wanted to acknowledge or just say that I would never equate the big company workflows with the best workflows out there, because I'm sure, as you know, as Israelis, the best ideas aren't created when you have enough. They're created when you don't. So I really think that a lot of these really good work, like a lot of the future workflows, the innovative ones, will be coming from those of you who are not at these big companies with all these resources. They will be coming from those of you who have all these other struggles that the rest of us can't even fathom. So I look forward to hearing your presentations in the near future.